Yeah, thanks for inviting me. I'm very pleased to be here. First time I've been near University of Washington here. I did graduate work at Western Washington University, get a master's in education after my ordination, so I could teach some science at the school. We run a high school and a college seminary, which is kind of unique because high schools um, aren't very numerous anymore after the council. They are more in Europe, but we've found the blessings of a formation, especially for young men before college, to be very beneficial, especially nowadays with our cultural problems and a lot of needs for formation. Anyway, Father Chrysostom, I'm sorry you mentioned that floor. That might sidetrack me a bit. I'm in charge of the maintenance also at the Abbey, and I just have to put a footnote on his story there. The abbot, the first abbot, we moved up there in 39. Mount Angel founded us in 39 in Oregon. And the Archdiocese of Vancouver invited us to run their seminary, take it over. So we started a monastery and started a school there for them. And then we moved to Mission. It's near Abbotsford, just across the border. And the abbot had planned on saving money all those years to build a very beautiful church. He built a monastery first, all the necessities, and then had a temporary church like Catholics do, in the dining hall. And then built a very gorgeous sort of modern mix with medieval architecture that won awards. But he ran out of money towards the end. And so he cut corners on the heating system, as a floor heating system. And he says, the next abbot can worry about it. and I worked for the next abbot, and so it became my problem. But the floor failed after a while, and then the water was coming up through the floor, and we just couldn't run the floor heat. And it's concrete, and the building just radiates heat away. So it was that winter. It was brutal, and it was off. Yeah, in fact, I was looking at the holy water fountain to see if it would freeze. I guess you saw it before I did. I never saw it, but it was that cold. Anyway, well, I'm actually from Seattle. I've been there since school 83, monastery 85. I had no plans of being there, and I'm going to give you a little background of my vocation to help stimulate some thought conversation. I was here in Seattle. I was born in Seattle. I had lived a couple places, Oregon, Washington, and I was on a plan of my life was to get married, go into structural things, carpentry, architecture. I was winning awards in high school. I had some good mentors. I traveled to Cincinnati to represent the state of Washington for my in carpentry competition, and I was walking through the O'Hare airport trying to get my connection, running down the massive terminal. And I never forgot that, and I'll come back to that later. Anyway, so I met a woman in Seattle. Driving down here, it was like reminiscence of seeing the sights that her and I were seeing 40 years ago. And it's amazing, some things are still there. There's a lot of changes here in this area, dramatic changes. And I had thought of the priesthood. I actually attended an invite. The Archdiocese of Seattle had, the auxiliary bishop had invited some people down to Lacey to talk and visit for a day about possible vocations. I went. And in hindsight, I had a couple other things happen that should have gave me some pause. But in the meantime, I had every excuse not to get married. I can't live. I can't teach. I can't be. I don't want to be celibate. I don't think I can do it. I can. I don't think I can preach. I'm just going through a list of what I can't do. So I was at the Monroe State Fair, and I had bought a ring secretly, and I was with my fiance, and I planned to be there and to ask the question. And I pulled out the ring, and as soon as I started proposing, I heard a literally loud voice in my head that if you get married, you will not be a priest. And it was so clear. It was like so clear. I said, oh my goodness, where did that come from? I thought, my first thought was that this is what guys go through, when they propose. There's not probably a lot of married people here that can back me up on this, but that's what I thought. I thought, I'm just like, my nerves just went sideways and I heard a voice, and it was like, then it was like, it took the wind out of the rest of the proposal. Because I was, I'm talking to her, but I'm like, where'd that come from? All right, so let's get over it. Let's enjoy the fair. She said yes, which was, I guess that was kind of a risk. I guess they do say no sometimes, but anyway, but it bothered me, and it didn't go away. It didn't go away, and we started doing the plans. The marriage was arranged with our pastor, who had married my parents in my town, and they were the first to be married in their temporary gym that they just built. Later would be the church, and so I was very, kind of excited about that. My pastor had married my parents, still around, but it still disturbed me, and I'm thinking, why am I half-hearted about this marriage thing? So by my momentum, I was trying to do the right thing. Okay, we've got to make the marriage prep classes. We got to, do all the right Catholic things, the arrangements, and it was her. But it got to a point where, okay, there's something wrong here. So I had to talk to somebody. I talked to my pastor, and his associate was my spiritual director. My pastor was arranging the marriage. The associate was my spiritual director. So I was kind of weird. I was going to both of them. One, I'm having problems with this discernment, and then I'm arranging the marriage. And then, so I had to. I was told, you got to talk to her. Well, she did. I don't blame her. It was very hard on her. She didn't like it, and I felt awful. I just felt like, what am I doing? Is this just nerves? You had doubts, and to do that to her was just, it guilt tripped me. So I gave up and said, okay, maybe it's my problem. And then, but it still persisted, and so I talked to her a second time, and she was really upset again. And it was getting really hard to talk to her, anybody, about it. And I was talking to other people, and my parents were looking for a priest. I had 5 brothers and 3 sisters, and they looked at all the other people. They didn't look at me because I was, the black sheep or something, and they were shocked when I said, I'm thinking of priesthood. But anyway, they were, saying, yeah, you should chill out a bit and just slow down, and then we actually invited everybody to the wedding. We ordered the tuxedos and the dresses, and we sent out all the invitations. She hand calligraphy wrote all the persons, and she took my address list, her address list. I drove her down to the street, and she put it in one of those USA mailbox things at the post office, and it went in. I saw it, and nobody got them. I was getting phone calls because I was offending everybody because they weren't invited. And that was I consider that later a miracle, because I saw, witnessed, and it went in, and it was U.S. mail, and it was everything was done. She did it perfectly, and I have no explanation except for that was a miracle. Okay. Hindsight, yeah, it was many things like that. Then her mother saw it. She finally told me, she says, I want you as a son-in-law, but I can see you're a priest. That was shocking. I needed that. I just needed somebody to really understand what I was going through. And she said, okay, I'll help you. And so she worked with me to help her daughter, my fiance. And so she agreed that, well, just plan B would be I'll try the seminary out and I'll discern. If it doesn't work, I'll go back to plan A. And so she finally agreed, and it was like it was a transition too. It was like denial, anger, depression, bartering. The stages of great loss for both of us. Anyway, then I got to the seminary, and my brothers are already trying out a year at Christ the King Seminary just in Canada, and I'd come up to visit him, not planning on anything but marriage, and that was the reasonable place to be because they would take people who are not sponsored yet, so I can discern and be a free agent, and so that worked out well. But I went through a transition of adapting to it, and I must admit, it was my vocation. I have no regrets. After being there for 2 years, I discerned to the monastery, which was another transition. It wasn't my fiance, it was my dad, because he didn't want a religious, he wanted a diocesan, so that he was serious. So I had to go against him and get my mother against him. But he later said he was very happy I did that. But it was like, I had no plans of being a monk. I was like, what happened? A priest was out of the question. But my problem is this: I didn't know how to discern, and I was getting messages that most of us will get, not just only for religious life, priesthood, but for important things and even little things that are special to God. What you do to the least of mine, you do to me, our Lord would say. And God is speaking to you, and most of us are not aware of that gentle voice. St. Ignatius gives rules for it. And what I desperately needed is somebody to explain the discernment process. So what happens is, the second week rules of Ignatius is that this: you have the good angels in God moving you towards consolation, joy, peace, and himself. Then you have the bad angels and the devil opposing all those strategies. And it depends on the person. If you're moving from grace to grace, if you're doing good things, you're interested in religious things, or you have a desire to prayer, then the angels will speak softly and gently to you. Blessed are those who believe and have not seen. It's very blessed. And they'll speak that language. Whereas the devils will be violent. They'll trick you in the second rules, Ignatius says, with real good things, but harshly. You've got to do this. It's a great thing to do. You can't get a priest. You got to be married. So it'd be the gentle voice and harsh. Now, if you're falling away towards sin, they reverse their strategies. Now, the devil's got you already on a road to destruction, so he'll gently, you're doing the right thing. This is wonderful. So you won't be suspicious. And Ignatius says, well, the roles be reverse with how to discern the spirits. And so I was getting gentle voices in my life. I remember growing up and I was playing priest, with my siblings, and I was always the priest, We're just playing house. And I was always serving on the altar, and I went to seminary invites, and I just didn't put it together because I wasn't used to that gentle voice. And then the roles got reversed suddenly when he yelled at me. The good angels had to yell at me. So it was a perfect transition of what Ignatius would say in the second week rules of what you would expect with the divine communications. Now, there's faith involved because there's merit in faith. Thomas, you believe because you've seen, okay? An evil generation asks for signs. So often we get real frustrated and we demand signs and we want certainty, and even our culture has a strong disposition for that kind of thing. But it's actually not really good. You need to be formed and trained to hear our Lord speaking to you. And there's a great blessing in that, and you will find out later. It's like the Annunciation, where Mary, like, whoa, what's this strange thing that this angel's saying to me? We all have our Annunciations. That was a threshold change for me to answer that, to go through that difficult, for the woman I cared very much for, and it hurt her, to answer God. He who leaves mother, father, brother, sister, wife, children will be paid 100-fold. And pick up the cross and follow me. It's got a price to it. But there will be a payoff later. Like Mary opened up the gates of heaven through the incarnation, our salvation was opened. And each one of us has a dimension that is, you cannot see it because it's blessed in faith. You trust in me. Don't worry about tomorrow what you eat, you wear. But if you have that disposition that you are loved, that somebody really cares for you, it's a lot easier to trust the person and walk through the darkness. So this is what I need to hear. It would have been a lot easier. Now, I'm in a privileged place now working with, I'm a spiritual director. I've been trained. I'm a spiritual director at a seminary. I'm a professor. You got all sorts of needs for this kind of thing. And so through that experience and through the relationship now that God is lavishing upon me, I don't deserve, I can speak the language and I can see what's happening in hearts. We don't love God first, okay? He's got to love us first. That's why we love God. It can't be reversed. So God's obligation is to love you. And that's cool, isn't it? No, it's like we don't have to worry about it. But our problem is we're not open for it. We don't trust. We don't want to be vulnerable. We can't step out of the boat. But once we do, once you've been trained to say, it's okay not to understand. It's okay because just trust. And then he shows you beautiful signs of his love. And then it just escalates after that. It's a relationship. Okay? So here's two stories. What happened to her? I decided not to stay in contact with her because I needed to give her freedom, and it was hard for her, and it was hard for me, and I needed clarity. Although when you start a seminary studies, all the spiritual books, all the spiritual directors, all the masters will warn you that the devil will attack you with all sorts of girlfriends. Now, I'm speaking for the guys. It was so true. Yeah. I had all my past girlfriends calling me up, call me mother, where's he at? From the distant past, right when I joined the seminary. It was like demonic, okay? And I read about it, and it was really true, okay? So, but what happened to her, I decided to stay in contact with her older sister, and she kind of gave me little hints where she's at, but I never violated her space a bit. Somebody gave me a photograph of her children later. She had a beautiful boy and a girl, very close in age, about 10, 11. And I saw that, and I thought, I was struck deeply, like, these are my children, the fatherhood, the potential fatherhood. I just felt immediately they're mine, because they were hers. And I said, no, okay, no. This is very beautiful, because it gave me, it brought out my Father's heart. To see those children and to know that where I'm at now, I'm 100-fold. I never would have seen this. I never would have planned it. I was going to have children. I have so many children now that it's just endless. And they don't have to be young. They could be very old. And I've been given, by the grace of God in my sinful way, a blessing that God now can take that fatherhood and walk with the boys I work with, walk with the men, and they don't have to be young. Like the other day, I was at a great men's retreat, 300 men. It was a wonderful experience, and like others before, this one guy comes up and says, he's in tears, the father. He says, I can't get over it. I'm so mad at God. My young newborn daughter, 12 days old, died, and I can't get over it. You know, it kind of broke my heart when he was telling me this. But I said, look, your daughter is saying to you, I'm in a very beautiful place. I am loved more than anybody can love me, and I'm waiting for you. You just keep walking in faith. You have a journey, you have a cross to bear, but I'm here to encourage you, like the daughter wants to encourage him. And he found relief after all these years of anger. He had joy. And you just need to tell him what God would say with this fatherhood that's very difficult. And I felt like I was in a privileged place with this very, holy situation of the cross and suffering, and give it translation, and to align him with the God he was mad at to a father. Come follow me. Pick up your cross and follow me. If you love father, mother, brother, sister more than me, you're not worthy of me. Only because I'm in love with you, and you can't stop for the creature. You can't stop. They're my problem. Okay? Don't worry about it. Martha was upset because Mary was sitting at his feet. She's chosen a better part. Okay? So we need to really let go with a vocation, with that, but especially that relationship. No matter what you do, you got to have that relationship. Vocation helps vocations as well. So that picture was beautiful for me. I never seen or talked to her afterwards, but I thought that was beautiful for me to feel. She had a family. That was the first thing, but then it gave me contrast to where God had sent me as a father. Hundredfold. What else I wanted to say? There's many other things about this. Any questions so far?
You said that was the first thing. What about the airport?
Okay, yeah, the airport thing. Yeah. That thunderstruck me. Exactly 40 years to the day I was back in that airport, going to Mundelein Seminary to start a 3-year course, spiritual direction training. And I wasn't thinking about it. Just all of a sudden I was back in this gargantuan terminal, and all the people trying to find my terminal and get my baggage, and the same kind of chaos. And it just struck me. I was right here 40 years ago to the day. It was that arranged. And it just, the providence hit me like a brick. I was on my career going to represent the state of Washington, doing construction and winning awards and gold medals and stuff. And I was going this terminal, and now I was going to this terminal in a different direction. And it just struck me that what God had done, it was beautiful. But it just put me in tears at the moment, because he told me right then, all these years, that's why he did it. So you got to have that openness to mystery. It took 40 years, almost like in a desert. You finally reached a promised land type. Do we have time for one more story, or are we okay with that?
Yeah, we have time.
Okay, yeah. So at Mundelein, they're training you, and then part of the training is they put you through an Ignatian retreat. Everybody been an Ignatian retreat? A silent guided retreat. It could be 5 days, 8 days. I did also the 30-day later on. Extraordinary. It just really taught me beautiful things about a retreat, and it gives you a great encounter with God. I encourage any of you to seek out the possibility of a good guided retreat. It helps you kind of tune what God is actually saying to you now. And one example that struck me, and I never forgot it, was there was an 8-day retreat, and there was all these 70 priests, and we're all silent. We're going through spiritual direction every day. And a priest came up to do a meditation passage from John, just so before he just let us go to our program and our prayer. He spent about 4 hours, holy hours a day. And he had a passage in John where Jesus was praising the Father. He said, "I thank you, my Father, because you've given me these men as a gift, and they're a gift between us two." The apostles were a gift between the Father and the Son. And I'm thinking, how can I see myself as a gift? That was beautiful. I've never interpreted that passage that way. It just kind of struck me. And so I was asking her, what do you mean by I'm a gift between the two of you? And I went to Holy Hour, and I was just thinking that was a beautiful thing that drew my attention to that passage. Then all of a sudden I was thinking of vases of roses. When I was engaged with my fiance, I opened up an account in a local florist store. And I had an account, and I said, "You bring this to her door once a week, a vase of roses." And everybody loved it. Their sister, the mother, I was trucked right up, and this delivery of roses. And it was I loved it too, because it was a gift to her. It was a message to her. It was very, symbolic. And I'm trying to unpack this passage, and I'm thinking of roses. So why am I thinking of this roses? Back to my old girlfriend and stuff. Then I heard him say, "You are the rose." What it meant to me, it was so specific. I was getting joy out of those roses expressing between the two of us. And he knew that. And he answered in his way, my language. And so it struck me personally. He says, "You're the rose. You're the love of the Father and the Son." And I broke in tears, because I knew what that meant. And he knew I would. And so, again, the marriage was sacramental to me for my vocation. And it spoke a strong language. And I related it to my spiritual director, and she's a woman, and others. And they just love that story, because it's so typical of the Father and Jesus. So he'll use her past to express. There's a reason your journey has got a providential care, and you think you're in charge, but you're distressed about what you're not in charge with, and the pain and the suffering and the difficulties. But God has got it all. And when you find out that he's not a God that's remote or a deistic God, he's actually personal, and he's been planning this out, and he knows how to work with your difficulties, you fall in love with him. Okay? And so I'm asking you to consider that as well. You're struggling maybe with questions of vocation, or just what's your next step. Surrender to our Lord who loves you. We're the one who needs to open the door, that's all. He has to love us first. Revelation 3, Jesus is knocking on the door. He wants you to open it so he can eat supper with you. And that's a good expression of what we need to do in trusting him, is let him do the work, but just crack the door open slightly. I think he tells Sister Faustina that. Just crack it open slightly, and I'll do the rest. Okay. Any questions? Or there's another student back there. Ulrich. Good to see you too. Finally got here.
I have a question, actually.
Yeah.
So I like how you shared I'm curious to know how, because all of us within the Zoom have a calling to motherhood or fatherhood,
Mm-hmm.
whatever manner,
Mm-hmm.
shape, or form that takes.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to see how that aligns with that personal call to quote unquote sonship or quote unquote daughtership.
Yeah.
And how those two can lead us closer to,
Yeah.
how they align closer with each other and
Yeah.
reveal to us our vocation.
Yeah. Good question. The beloved children of God is your foundation for everything, and no matter what your calling is, mind you, marriage should have those very similar patterns of uncertainty and in our society, a lot of marriages do fail. It's hard to put up with the cross. But when you deal with your identity that God gives you, and you're open to it, it's a game changer for everything else, no matter what your vocation is. I would say, though, with our generation, we have more special problems. The Gen Zs, the millennials, I've been doing a lot of study on that. One outstanding feature, among other things, is that it's hard for this generation to commit, to make long-term commitments. You don't want to be canceled. You don't want one disagreement knowing 10,000 people know it immediately. You don't want to be vulnerable. You're afraid, and it's really interrupting a lot of things. Marriage is tanking. The marriage is people going to marriage is actually tanking, and it's also affecting the priesthood. They get so far, they drop out. I can't do it. What? They go so far, but when it comes to actual commitment, so we have a special problem of rebuilding. Who are they? You have a father who loves you, and don't worry about the storms. Don't worry about. He'll take care of everything. And so it's a special message even for today, especially. Now, the Holy Spirit's not afraid. He's calling people. He knows how to meet their needs, even our generation. But yeah, so the identity of each man and woman, girl and boy, needs to find out who they are. You can't get 10,000 likes and that's me, And they're doing it. And suicide's going up. Depression's going up. Because, and they can't post themselves directly. They have to Photoshop it. They have to get the best image. And then they see everybody else is better than them. And then they're depressed. And, there's a lot of research on that. It's true. But even more so, you don't do that. It's Jesus who saves you, who loves you, and it's the Father who sent him to save you and love you because he loves you. And that's true for all generations, but especially for now and our needs, our special needs. Yeah, fatherhood, families are broken up. They're trying to survive with unhealthy responses. They can't trust. That's a big thing. Nobody wants to trust, be vulnerable. Where essentially is once you know that you have somebody who loves you absolutely and he's God, the Father, you have no worries at all. But to get him to trust and start and then proving with miracles, it's a game changer. Yeah.
Would you be able just to maybe mention or describe briefly what your life is like as a Benedictine monk?
Oh yeah. Well, work and prayer, or at Labora, is the Benedictine. Saint Benedict died in the 5th century, about 547, and born about 480. But he had a wonderful gift, and he was a miracle worker and blessed to pull people together to him and create these communities where they would pray together and support each other, and they became monasteries in a community level where the older version was hermits going out, and doing their thing. He did that for a while, but so the beauty of the community actually became so popular that during the Middle Ages and and throughout the several thousand years, 2,000 years, they were always beautiful stabilizers for the Western Church and Western civilization, Christendom. And so this is a continuation. It surprises people that we actually have monks still in this modern generation. But so our day is we pray together about 5 times a day. We have Mass, we have Liturgy of the Hours in a formal way. We chant a little bit more formal, some of the office with Gregorian chant a bit. It's all the Novus Ordo stuff. It's not the extraordinary form stuff. But we do it so well that it was very attractive to people. We're bonded. We're about 30 monks, brothers and priests, and those in between studying for the priesthood. We run a 200-acre farm. We have a guest house program. We take about 50 or 60 people. Very popular. We got high school, college, seminaries. Our tuition is crazy cheap compared to any other seminary in North America. It's about $7,500 for tuition, room and board, because we do most of our own work. I teach in the high school and college. I teach the sciences, chemistry, physics, math a bit, sociology in the college, geology in the college, some catechetics in the college, and I do a lot of the maintenance. So work and prayer is a balance, and it's very formative. Catholic social teaching points clearly at that man has a right to work, not to make simply money, but it fulfills him. When somebody's unemployed, it's not like he can't afford things. He's emotionally and psychologically and spiritually disturbed, and it can be damaging if he has that deprived of him. So we see it's a natural law right, and it's also a divine right. So we have a lot of encyclicals about work, and we kind of model that for society. The kings always invited Benedictines in to stabilize their economy, stabilize their agriculture, and stabilize their towns. In a different way, we're doing the same way, but differently. People come to us. Even our city, secular city, we have a 150-foot bell tower as our icon up on the hill, top of the hill. I don't know if anybody's been to Westminster Abbey and Mission, but the city actually put in their emblem, the bell tower. They're discriminating Catholics now. And I go to City Hall and argue at them because they're doing something wrong, and they actually listen, which is weird. Not always, but anyway. And then I just had a city worker come up because we're doing some water lines and running an excavator and putting in another fire hydrant and some big pipes in the ground. And one of the main foreman workers comes up and he says, "Yeah, you got a reputation. We know you, Father Joseph." Because I can call them up and say, "Check your valves on this street because they're giving us water hammer over here." And they go over and it's the valve, I kind of know what's going on, but anyway. So we got a cool relationship, but it's mainly spiritual. We're symbolic, and we're a center for the local Catholic Church. We're not perfect. We have our problems. We're going through some problems now, but that's normal. Every institution has its trials. Every marriage has its trials for purification and glorification. And yeah, right now we got too many jobs going on at the moment. Don't get me started on that. But yeah, anything else you want to know?
I guess being there from 18 to 21 year old, deeply formed me. I'm sure deeply formed Theo and everybody else has been there. And kind of religious spirituality. And for us Dominicans, it's similar, but our work is usually more like preaching or study. And so I run back and forth between here and Blessed Sacrament at least 4 times a day for me to go pray with the brothers. And for sometimes other brothers across the province are like, "That's crazy. Why don't you just stay in one place?" In my mind, it's so natural. I think because that's what the Benedictines like now. You have to stop to go pray.
Yeah.
And then you have to go. It's this back and forth. And at first, it's kind of hard, but it's this inhalation and exhalation that becomes like a part of the core of what you are. And to me, after being being there when I'm graduate, I realized that maybe I knew I wasn't called to be, but I think too closer as such, but like I deeply hungered for that, and also for the chant as well.
Mm-hmm.
My funny story about chant is I didn't know what chant was, and so we were when I first went to Westminster Abbey, you kept going to the church and like singing, and like it took like a day, and I was just like, why do we keep on going there and like just singing? And then it hit me like, oh, this is prayer. And I didn't clue in because like usually prayer for me sitting with like my Bible or sitting with like the Psalms. This is a different type of prayer.
Yeah.
It didn't take to it immediately. It wasn't natural for me.
Yeah.
I felt like it took years.
Yeah, that's okay, because I think you're right. It's kind of a worker's spirituality a bit. Whereas you go to like a 30-day retreat, and it's seriously spiritual. In fact, it drives some people crazy when they first get into it, because you're doing 5 holy hours a day, and you're getting up at midnight for a holy hour, and then. But that's why it's so beautiful. It's balanced, and it reaches so many people, and they don't know it until later when they get away from it, they miss it. And in the seminarians, the big thing is we're criticized because we got a monastic formation for seminary, and they're trying to get away from that paradigm for the new evangelization. You got a lot of new ideas out there, and they kind of criticize monks involved. We're not the only monastery involved with seminary formations, but at the end of the day, we're still given community values. Some of the other seminaries that they don't have community values that as deep as ours, and so when the minor seminary or the high school go away, they never forget you. Normally, they stay in contact. Or they like visiting. Like Alaric, right? Have you had therapy yet to get over it?
One more thing to comment is that besides Labora and Craig, I think one of your charisms is hospitality.
Yeah.
So like most Benedictine monasteries, particularly of men, will have a guest house.
Yeah.
And so like when I travel abroad, like when I was living in Italy, I just looked up Benedictine monasteries.
Yeah.
And there's one in the mountains, and I called them up, saying, "Can I stay for a week?" And they said yes. And I remember the first night, the abbot came up to me, and it was a German-speaking monastery, but there is in Italy because his name is German.
Mm-hmm.
He said to me in English, "We are having pizza tonight. This is Italy, no?"
Oh yeah. Hospitality is very important. Saint Benedict has provisions for guests. We're always attracted, even to the ancient monasteries. They're always attracted, because people are hungry for God. You're hungry for God, and a lot of people don't know that, and they squander it looking for the answer somewhere else until they get sicker. And that's actually an opportunity to then speak to them when they're like the prodigal son. Something's wrong. So yeah, hospitality is it's a constant charism, and I was received at Monte Cassino and Subiaco like I was a brother, and I was all alone and vulnerable, and it was nice. Yeah, I get it, but yeah, we're a lot of work, but not just the old, pick and shovel kind of thing. We're into like high-tech plumbing where stainless steel parts, and one piece is like $700, $800, and you crimp it on, with these machines that, thousands of dollars. We know how to do that. We're just not, primitive. We do primitive things. And by the way, our youth don't have practical skills. With social media, they're not playing sports as much as they did. They're not socializing in the traditional ways. They don't have to know how to invest into friendships by investing pain, effort, and patience. It's all instant, You either like me or don't, And it's really leaving deficits, and even the workforce is complaining. They're not ready for the workforce. But you take them over time and take them out of their comfort zone and have them clean out a barn. They actually love it after a while. Most of them love it because it's therapy. It's real. There's something good about it that God meant, by the sweat of the brow, something fulfilling. It goes back to the theory of work. And so it's beautiful to see, these kind of protected city kids don't want to get messy and don't want to be vulnerable, and pretty soon they love it.
Also, I do remember one time I came by and this high school seminarians were almost, I don't know, gleefully digging the grave for a recently deceased monk. One of the brothers died, and I just saw them all down there with shovels. They seemed very happy to be digging the grave in the cemetery.
You know what? It's not morbid. It's a gospel of life and a journey message. If you can do that, it's not bad, because it keeps you on your feet in reality. And I've seen so many confreres die now, and we build our own coffins. We have a wood shop. We make it very simple, nothing ornate, and we dig the hole. We have our own cemetery. I scandalize guests saying, "Yeah, I got a plot out there waiting for me," and but it's actually, where are we going, man? We're going to heaven. We're here on a journey, and that would be a measure of your spirituality if you have problems with that. You don't like to think about that. That's just a measure of your spirituality, and there's good news waiting for you. That there's something really better waiting for you, and it's a person who loves you so much. It will fulfill all your wishes in ways that your eye can never see or ear hear, and it's so true. So yeah, that's a good point. And they the boys help put the ropes down with the coffin. We don't have all this machinery and this expensive stuff. They use the ropes, and we just pray they don't slip on it. That they go in as planned, and then they help finish bury the grave. So really, we need those things. We need the farms and cleaning out the stalls and the fraternity and learning how to be patient with one another, but also be challenged. How do you listen to God who speaks to you individually? And you're different from everybody else. That's what we need to do. Yeah.
Speaking to that, you mentioned that you had difficulty discerning. You didn't know how to discern.
Yeah.
What would you say the best advice? Take it from that experience. What's the best way to cultivate a habit of listening to God? Yeah,
thoughts, feelings, desires. Okay, spiritual director is one. I encourage you to get a spiritual director, or at least somebody that's wise in that area. And you can read some of the commentaries. Timothy Gallagher is an excellent commentary on the rules of St. Ignatius. He's got the first week rule and the second week rules. When he put together, he's a patron saint of retreats. He put together a plan for actually running people through a retreat that trains them. It's called the exercises. How to listen to God, how to discern, how to hear, and when to recognize when you got a devil on you or when you got an angel on you. And so Timothy Gallagher's got good commentaries on both the first week rule and the second week rule. The first week rule is 14 rules, and that's when people first enter into the exercises, and you need to clean them up. The sense of sin is not right, so they have attachments to sin. And so he walks them through meditations and encounters and holy hours, opening themselves up to Jesus, and meditative prayer. Imaginative prayer is a type of meditation in St. Ignatius's terms, where you imagine being in a biblical scene with our Lord, and you're there with him, and you're his children. He loves you, and he loves to be with his children. So it's not just your, imaginative fantasy. You're actually creating a safe place for Jesus to be, and he loves to be there. And so he walks them through it, and then he has, and you sit with him, a spiritual director, for unpacking what you've experienced. And like I say, many good things happened with me. The 30-day retreat with me was just, it was beautiful. It was just beautiful. Although you can have some dark times. I was attacked by the devil. Literally. He crawled into my bed at night. It was scary as heck. He went underneath my covers. And I felt swirled with a blackness like never even experienced a darkness ever. Just like I was just being suffocated, just swirling around like a serpent. And it took my breath away. I just started saying the Hail Mary. And they hand out holy water to all the retreatants for this very reason. There's many, when you're going through a very good thing, the devil hates it. And like the rules say, the devil will do the opposite of what the good angels are doing. So you have to expect that. And it was horrible. And I got the holy water out, blessed salt and holy water, sprinkled the room. And then all of a sudden I was overwhelmed with a great, profound peace of consolation. Not like, oh, I feel better now, but just overwhelmed with God's presence and saying, I'm with you. It was cool because it gives you a reality check that there is this lion looking for souls to devour, and he's real, and he hates you. He's usually hiding behind the second week rules, fooling with little temptations. Oh, I've discerned this. I'm going to do this. This is a great thing, but it actually is taking away from a better thing. You know, that's what he likes to be doing his work where you don't notice him. But when he gets really angry and makes himself known, it's actually reassuring that you're doing the right thing and he's real and you oppose him and you're also loved by God and his angels, and it just gives you a great bearing where you belong. So I shared that with my spiritual director at the time, as Jesuit. He was a very classic Jesuit, and he was like, "Wow, yeah, I've seen that before." And that night he was attacked too, so he blamed me. But okay, so the commentaries, Ignatius has a way of expressing those 8 rules. 8 rules. The second week rules are when you're on the way of progress in spiritual life. You're doing well. You're doing better. You're no longer attached to pornography. You're not attached to, awful things, and you're on your way to progress. Then the devil changes his tactics in the second week rules. And Ignatius says those rules so when the one doing the exercises has learned now to be on that part and journey, then he can reveal the second week rules on how to identify the devils and the good angels and how to make discernments. Example. When you're doing from grace to grace, the angels are speaking softly to you, you're doing well, and giving you consolations. The devils will give you consolations, harsh consolations, this great thing to do, but Ignatius says it's like a water dripping on a sponge with the good angels. And the devils give you good ideas to do, but it's like hitting rock. It's something harsh about it. So I remember somebody offering me a possibility of doing spiritual direction at somewhere in the States, and I felt that sudden like that'd be great. I thought, where'd that come from? I can't do that. I just wanted to do it. And it was an offer. I'm under obedience. I got important things, assignments I've got to do. And that is better things to be doing than what you think a good thing is over here. And I felt like that was harsh, but I wanted it all of a sudden. And that's a good sign of the devil tempting me with a consolation, but it'll never give me peace. It'll diminish the good that I'm already doing, St. Ignatius says. And sometimes you get fooled and you go into this mess and then you realize, oh, I've been fooled. You back out, you analyze your mistakes so that you can prevent it next time, because it's kind of subtle. So I would advise 2 levels, the 14 rules, spiritual director, and you read up about commentaries of 14 rules, and then the 8 the other second week rules with the 8 guidelines. For example, the 14 week rules, rule 13. You're in a mess with something, you're caught up with something. The devil wants you to tell nobody. You keep it secret. You're afraid to tell anybody, but you're caught up in something that's not good. His tactic is to say, no, you'll be ashamed. You'll lose your job. Your life will be ruined. And so you keep going. It's like with a cell phone. Okay, I got pornography addictions. You're afraid to tell anybody. I just can't go to with accountability accounts, because I'm too ashamed. The devil's saying, yeah, don't do it because you'll be ashamed and you'll feel awful, and it's real. So you're caught up, you're stuck with it. But Rule 13 says, you tell somebody. You tell somebody, and the devil will suddenly flee. He loses power. And it's powerful. When you finally get somebody to open up, it breaks a spell, Practical things like that. I frankly had to tell a confrere that there was a woman, a religious woman, in love with me, and I was trying to do the right things, but I was getting bothered because I sort of started wanting it. Okay? And most of the priests say, yeah, just get ready. You're going to have that, that trial life, but handle it well. But when you don't handle it well, it can be a terrible mess. And so I finally said, okay, no, I know this is wrong. I don't want to get into it. So I told a confrere, and it was just like easy after that, just because I broke the spell. There's many other rules too that are helpful. Rule 14. The devil's like a general circling a fortress. He's looking for this weakness to see where he's going to attack it. And he'll look for your weaknesses. And there actually become doors where you actually let him in, and he's looking for it. If you have lies about yourself, that I'm not loved by God, it always happens to me, I'm hopeless, this always happens to me, nobody likes me, nobody understands me, you're believing lies about yourself, and those are easy doors for the devil to get in and then make it worse. Anyway, so I'm talking too much. Is that okay?